Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mang. Welcome back to Roll Mangging for our D&D campaign. And, yeah. This is going to be a story of how some things will go according to plan for almost the entire time, and then go horribly off plan at the last moment. Yeah. Okay, so we started off the session, and I don't know how much I talked about this last time, but we started off with them. It was Mert, Commander Kill, and the Elven Ranger down in the basement of the castle. And they went through into some secret crypt, family crypt, and they were investigating this kind of moving pile of refuse. And so, of course, it turned out to be bad. And they went right into combat with a couple of... what was it? Osteopedes. That's what they were called. Osteopedes. So they were like bone centipedes. Undead. And so they fought those. And they didn't seem terribly difficult. But one of them scurried away, burrowed into the ground and went away. And the other one was about to die and was going to flee, but Mert critically failed his attack of opportunity. And so the thing exploded instead. And all the bile inside of it went right down his throat. So yeah, he was pretty much boned right there. And so combat basically ended at that point. But they saw another refuse pile or something like that in the corner. And so they set it on fire, I think. And then they were looking all around the room, because there's there's got to be something else here. It can't just be these piles of shit. There's got to be something else here. So they're looking all around, but they don't find anything, and they're the only thing that's left is over by that refuse pile. And so Mert's oh, I'll go check it out. And so he goes, he wants to skirt around it. So he I don't know what prompted him to do this. Seemed like the dumbest thing ever, but I wasn't there. So it was in a corner, but it wasn't right up against the wall. So he went right up against the wall with his back to it. He was showing it his butt as he just skimmied along this wall. And I'm this is not going to end well. And so something lashes out at him but misses. And so he tries to whip around and step over the refuse pile to get away from it, but he kind of trips, and so it reveals that it's a pit. And so he almost falls down the pit. He's holding on to scraps of bone and shit. And so they all try and help him. Commander Kill is trying to throw a rope. There was 5 critical fails throughout this whole little section. It was just tremendous. Nobody could succeed at anything. And it's just it's alright if you're the 2 people helping. It's okay. But if you're the guy that desperately needs help, he's gonna die, it's come on, roll! But no, none of them could really pull anything off. And so, Gyro the Ranger had, she grabbed them at one point, but they were not strong enough. And so it was if you don't let go, you're going to be pulled in. And it's man, you have to be quite the character to hold on at that point. So, no, she let go. And so Mert fell down this pit for 300 feet or something. Or maybe it was 200 feet, I don't know. And he hits the bottom, but he doesn't die. He's at 3 health. And that's a worse fate, I guess. Because there's he basically picture the scene from King Kong when they're down in that crevice with all the bugs. Picture that, but pitch blackness and you can't see anything. How nice! I was even sitting there and I was ugh. He could just hear things clicking and things just running over him, and so Ziggy's like, I'll give you like one action. You can do, like, you have time to do one action. And so I was like, you gotta just pray. Like, his character is the only like religious one, even though there's no, gods or something, or they're gone, or I don't know how it completely works yet. I'm working on it. He's like, all right, I'll pray. So he prays. He doesn't get any answer. He lowballs it, and so Ziggy's like, okay, well, do you have a backup character in mind? Because I don't think you're gonna like role-playing your character if this goes on. And he's like, yeah, I got a backup character. So, goodbye, Mert. And they just hear, like, screams coming up from down there. And so they're like, well, that's terrible, but let's keep exploring. I'm like, holy shit. So they keep poking around, and they eventually find a little hidden entrance to another room that was just completely, like, lined and filled with mirrors all over the place. And I'm like, man, if Fred Zoller would be there, it'd be kind of funny. Because, he's a vampire. And, vampires don't have reflections in mirrors. I don't, that's just something somebody made up. You can go with that as official canon for vampires, or you can not. But I think in this situation, Ziggy would probably go with it. So, yeah, he'd probably say I don't have a reflection. But I'm not there, so no big deal. So they're looking around this room, and this is clearly one of those mystery rooms where you gotta figure it out. Very dungeon-esque. And so, there's two ways to do these rooms. One is you do it as a player, where you're just sitting here, out of game, and you're just like, I wonder how he designed this, what do these mirrors do, and blah, 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 okay, and, alright, I'm gonna do this, and, okay, this is what that's as a player. Or you can do it as a character, which is what I tend to do. So, somebody like Donnie McFly or Ovum would just smash everything. Artemis would try to basically deconstruct the room in his mind and see how this is all put together. Frederick Zoller would just leave. So, yeah. But no, that's how I play. I guess there's no right or wrong way, it's just how involved you get. They handled it as players, I don't want to harp on anybody. But I guess a major theme of this whole session is that they don't like me. Or they don't like my characters. I guess that's the thing, is almost all my characters tend to be very polarizing. Because they have so much personality. Again, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I really... I want to identify my characters as somebody, you talk about any one of Mert's characters or anything like that. You even talk about Commander Kill here, this Elven Ranger, it's just, they're kind of just there. I don't want to be mean or anything like that, and it's better to play with somebody like this than to play with nobody at all. I can't just be a solo player here, so I'm fine with it. I'm just saying, there is a reason that I go kind of overboard. Is so in the future I can just sit there and think about, okay, there's Frederick Zoller, and I know exactly how he was, and how he acted, and how he thought, and there's Artemis, and I know exactly how he was, and what he thought like, and, what his course of actions would be, and Ovum, and they're overboard, all of them, completely, yes, but they're all so unique and identifiable. And so, this is a weird tangent, I don't remember what I was talking about. Right, because they were playing as, just, they're players, I guess it's role-playing. Is what I'm talking about. And I'm definitely not a hardcore role player. I don't go always into character all the time. And if there's any laughter at the table or anything, it's just like, or anything like that, but I just like to be able to identify as a character. And so for some people, that's just... Maybe they are, and maybe I'm not picking up on it because they're not as overboard, but being so crazy, you can always just remember them. Yeah. Okay, so this mirror room. So they basically just kind of walked around and looked at stuff. And Commander Kill started like running his hand along a wall of mirrors until eventually one of them like shocked him. There was like an electric shock. And so they were kind of perplexed by that. And then they started like throwing stuff at the mirror, so like this crack appeared. And they started to like peel the mirror away, and there was just a wall there. And yeah, they got really stuck. They didn't know what to do. Until at one point, Commander Kill like just banged his fist against one of these big pillars that was in the room. That was not a mirror. It was 4 big pillars. So he just like banged his fist against it in frustration, and it just crumbled to the ground. And subsequently, the other 3 crumbled to the ground. And these pillars were providing light. So the whole room was very bright because they were lit by these pillars. And so these pillars just like crumbled to dust. And the room became pitch black. But they knew that they were not alone in that room anymore. 2 zombie hulks came out of a couple of the pillars. And so combat ensued yet again with only 2 of them now. And so early on, Commander Kill used some ability that like brightened up a little portion of the room so they could see the zombie hulks. And they were getting their asses handed to them. I mean, these zombie hulks were just dominating. Easily hitting their ACs, doing massive damage, and they were going to die. But like this opening opened up, and so eventually they decided to just flee. And we were giving him shit. We're like, Commander Kill's gonna flee? I mean, okay, if that's what Commander Kill would do, then that's what he would do. I have characters that would flee in that situation. I have characters that wouldn't flee in that situation. So, okay, that's all right. And they were probably gonna die. So it's self-preservation usually trumps everything. And so they run out. The zombie hulks can't chase them. And they get back into the castle, and they alert the guards and stuff. There's zombie hulks down there. Like, oh god. And so they get taken to another room for medical attention. And so they're kind of like lying in bed, recovering. And in walks Lord Stanton, Lady Greystar, and a few elite guards. And I'm like, oh boy. Not a decision that I wouldn't have done that. I would not have stayed in the castle. And what's worse is they went into a room that did not have a window. Never do that. I don't care what character you're playing. Don't go into a room in a castle that's controlled by an evil sorceress that does not have a window. That's just not good planning. And so they spoke to Lord Stanton and his wife. And basically what it boiled down to was like the two of them know that this chick is evil, right? And she's controlling Lord Stan. But they don't just want to say that, because they'll just die. The Lady Greystar knows that they know, but if they say anything, she'll just kill them, you know? So it's kind of delicate. And so what it boiled down to was them having to swear an oath to Lord Stanton that they will do everything in their power to ensure his prosperity in this city. And they had to swear the oath. And so Gyro the Ranger was like, I still don't really know her character's name, by the way. She was like, all right, I whatever. And so she swore the oath. Commander Kill had a much bigger problem with this, because he wanted to swear an oath to the city. But that's not what she wanted. She wants him to swear an oath to protect Lord Stanton. And so eventually he did. I'm pretty sure. But he was bluffing. So he had to roll a bluff. I think he rolled like a 16. And Lord Stanton was like, okay. I don't think Lady Greystar was as easily fooled. But he said the words. And so they were like, we want you to go on this diplomatic mission with Frederick Zahler. And they were like, okay. And we'll give you, a few days to prepare. And she also released to them Logan Dunbar, who was in hiding, but they let him out. She wiped most of his memory, but she let him out. Alright. So I gotta follow kind of this. There was some boring talking parts where I wasn't paying much attention. Alright, I think they head back to the Rolling Barrel at some point where they meet up with me. But what I was doing... Okay, so at the end of the last one, I went to Gork's Butchery and I ordered a whole cow. Right. I then went to the marketplace. And I bought 100 sheets of parchment and a bunch of ink. And on each one of those... I took like 2.5 hours. On each one of those pieces of parchment, I wrote... Our dear Lord Stanton is under control by Lady Greystar, who is a dark sorceress who is likely in league with the Warlocks. If you wish to join me in opposition, please meet me in front of the castle in 3 nights' time, and we will take back our dear city. Signed, a concerned citizen. Okay? And after I wrote all that, I went down to Beggar's Pool, which is kind of just like a little pond where all the beggars hang out. And there was a few people there, and so I drew them in. I was, come closer, my children. And I was like, you're members of the lower class of Stanton. And like, oh, yes. And I was like, I could make it so that you never have to eat again. They were like, how? It was like, a gift that I will bestow upon you. And I promised like great power and achieve all your dreams. I had to roll bluff, but I rolled like a 40. And so they were like, yes, a gift, yes. Because, you tell a homeless person you'll give them something for free, they'll likely sign up for it. And so I was like, tell all your friends about this, and meet me here tonight. They're like, okay, yes. And so I departed. And, okay, so I meet up with them at the Rolling Barrel, and we sit down, and I, give everybody free drinks, and blah, blah, blah. I start the party up. And, so we're sitting there talking, the three of us and Logan, and we find out that they have, the two of them, Commander Kill and the Ranger, have a magical aura about them now. And so there's a little bit of help from Logan there. And we find out that it's an oath, like a magical oath placed upon them. And he says that if they disobey the oath that they took, they'll be disintegrated. Whether that's to be believed or not, hard to say, but, do you really want to take a chance? And so, because that seems like pretty powerful magic, but I guess she's a warlock. And I'm like, okay, I think maybe I'm going to go drink with some other people. Sounds a little too legit for me. They placed the circlet on his head, Logan's head, so he got back all his memories. And he's like, I gotta get out of town. I gotta go to Zarder. I have friends there. And blah, blah, blah. Around this time, Mert came in with his new character. Alright? His new character is a Warforged. Yes. You remember Mert the robot from way back when? I think his name was Optimus, but it's Mert. And he was real emo, and he, like, knifed on his armor or something like that, because he was so emo, and he loved his goddess and shit. And then he, like, fell down the pit into the abyss and was never seen again. Yeah. Well, anyways, he's got a new Warforged now. This one was made by this universe's version of his final character from the Artemis campaign, John. Yeah, I know. So, okay, so the John of this universe, who's not, a deity, just a guy, made this Warforged, and then that's all we really know. The different thing about this Warforged is he doesn't look like one. He looks like the Terminator. He's got, like, the flesh that covers him, so he looks like a guy, but he's a Warforged. Why? I don't know. I feel like most of the appeal of making a Warforged is you look like a freaking robot. If you want to just look like a guy, play a guy, but alright. And so, yeah, we meet up with him. And you know how it is when we introduce new characters. It's like, hey, we're doing this. You want to join? Like, sure. And, alright, so I got the party going. And I think they do some more talking stuff. Yeah, I think they go talk to, like, Arthur Goldright or something like that. Yeah, something like that. Again, I don't pay much attention to what's going on. Meanwhile, everybody is talking about this gift thing that's going on tonight at the Beggar's Pool. And I was really pleased, because these beggars were going around to people and being like, hey, you want to know about the gift? I'll tell you all about it for 5 gold pieces. And they were like, hell yeah, the gift? And it was so funny. I was like, Fred approves of this so much. And so some of these beggars made bank off this, because everybody was talking about this. And of course, Commander Kill heard about this eventually, and he squeezed the truth out of some beggar. And the beggar was like, oh, that Prince Zoller that came into town, he promised everybody a gift tonight at the Beggar's Pool. Like, oh God. And so I'm just kind of sitting, this whole time I'm just kind of sitting there and like, okay, constantly evaluating the plan as it's going through and making slight adjustments of what needs to be done and what's going to happen. And so everybody's saying 10 o'clock at the Beggar's Pool, this is when it's going to happen. So I'm partying. Around 9:45, I head out of the Rolling Barrel, and I go around town with my parchment. And I start slipping it under doors all over the place. Every business, the council house, wealthy people, just... Alright. And so, during this time, Commander Kill had gathered up a bunch of guards, I think like 22 of them, and took them all down to the Beggar's Pool, where 300 people were waiting. And I'm like, wow. I expected like 20. When I when I concocted the plan, I expected 20. When I said tell your friends, I meant like the other poor people. In hindsight, I should have enacted the plan with those initial group of like 8, but this was more interesting, I guess, in the long run. Okay, so there's like 300 people there that are expecting this gift from Prince Zahler, and Commander Kill and his 22 guards are trying to calm them down. And so a few people start dispersing and stuff like that. Commander Kill tells people, you know, move along here, blah, blah, blah. And so that's when I swoop down and perch on a rooftop. And I'm just like, welcome, my children. I have promised you great power, and it will be yours. But there is an obstacle here. Some people who do not wish you to have this gift. Commander Kill and his men. And they were like, well, what should we do? And I'm like, what all who have power do to those who do not. And so there was a bit of a charisma roll-off between me and Commander Kill as he, you know, obviously opposed this. And I think he crit. So he did pretty well. And eventually the number was dwindled down to about 75 that were resolute enough to stand against the guards. And so it was like, they were kind of like at a bit of a standstill. Because, you know, nobody wants to shed the first blood here. So I was like, well, then I'll have to do it. So I like dark beckon one of the guards sitting there, and he goes flying forward, and then this skirmish begins. And I think Gyro took like a shot at me, and it's pretty cheese. Like, she is a great adversary. She has an ability called like aimed shot or something. And what it is it's a shot, like a range basic or something, but the greatest negative modifier that she can receive from an enemy that has like superior concealment, or no, total concealment and superior cover is -2. So normally total concealment would give like -5. So this is like if you're in a pitch dark area, you can't see the person at all, but you can like hear them. Or if they're behind just like a brick wall, like one of those pillboxes or something, you know, like it just like has a little slit that you can fire out of. Like you're trying to fire into that. Like that would be a huge negative. But the most that shot can be negative is -2. That's insane. So even though I'm up on a rooftop in the shadows, she still only gets -2. And I don't have a great AC, and she's a ranger. And ranger means you hit everything you shoot at, normally. So, yeah, I never dodged an arrow from her. And so she hit me once, and I just flew away. And so this skirmish begins, and they, of course, took part in it. And so a bunch of homeless people died, and a bunch more were injured. A few of the guards died. A bunch of them were injured. It was kind of a bloodbath. We made that beggar's pool pretty red. And so after the thing ended, they kind of all left to treat their wounded, and I swooped back down to look for any survivors. And lo and behold, there were a couple. And so I was like, you are the chosen ones, and you will receive my gift. And I gave them the gift, baby. Okay, so I don't know if I talked about this, but back in... God. That was a long time ago now. I think that was Fred Zahler's first campaign. Ziggy had a house rule where if I bit somebody twice, you know, if I bite them just once, I can suck their blood, blah, blah, blah. If I bite the same person twice, like in different areas, and like leech them of all their life, they turn instead into a ghoul. Under my control. Basically a zombie. Like they're a husk of a person. And so if a ghoul bites anybody else, they turn into another ghoul. And so that's the gift. which is a pretty shitty gift. But I bit these dudes a couple times, turned them into ghouls, and I just said, spread chaos. And that's what they did. Okay, so Commander Kill and the others, they go back to the council house, where they see a little letter on the floor. And they read it over. And Commander Kill spent quite a while thinking about this letter. Like, at the start, he's like, we should go to the castle. There's things to discuss. And he kept on, like, kind of changing his mind more and more. Until the end, he goes back to the council house. He rallies up his men that are still capable. And he's like, are you with me? Are you with your commander? And they're like, yes, sir. He's like, then from this point forward, since you have all read this letter, I'm declaring martial law. And they were like, oh. And so one of the guys really opposed it, and so they dueled, and he ended up killing the guy, and yeah, it was pretty sad, but, it's martial law, man. So, okay, Stanton is now under martial law, under the rule of Commander Kill. Which is a good time to have martial law because shit's about to hit the proverbial fan. Okay. So he drafted up a letter talking about the riots and stuff, and he sent that off to the castle. And then he drafted up the letter declaring martial law. And he sent that off. He's like, all right, we should go, he wrote in the letter about Frederick Zoller inciting a riot and stuff like that. And he's like, we don't know if there's any more people that, Frederick Zoller is going to get to incite more riots. We don't know what's going on there, so let's just patrol the streets. As they head out of the council house, they get jumped by a ghoul. And so this starts the great ghoul invasion of Stanton. All right. So, this was actually really cool. I actually really enjoyed this section. Because it reminded me a lot of almost 30 Days of Night. For slightly different reasons. But, if you remember the scene... I don't know how many people saw this movie. I liked it. I've seen it a few times, but okay. So 30 Days of Night, this little town in Alaska gets overrun by vampires. And they all get slaughtered. But there's a scene in 30 Days of Night where it's kind of like a creeping thing where the vampires pick off one guy, they pick off a couple, and then they pick off a few people, and then at one point it hits a climax, and they just burst throughout the whole town, and the streets are running red with blood, and screams are going all over the place, and people are just dying all over the place, and there is an awesome aerial shot where it just sweeps over the street in the town, and you just see all this madness and chaos going on. And so as Frederick Zoller, I was flying around in bat form over the town, and I was like, this is what I'm seeing, basically. As I get this perfect aerial view of the town as just the screams fill my ears and just horribleness. But hey, I'm not evil. Okay. And so, yeah, it basically spread. And I didn't do a great deal to directly influence it. I could have done a lot more. But I spent most of my time flying around in the air. I picked off a few people to help it along, but for the most part it was all just ghouls. And so it's very fortunate, I guess, that they had just, they had rounded up all these guards and they had just gone into martial law and all that, because otherwise, if they were very disorganized, could have been a lot worse. Basically, I think they lost about half the town in the end. Because they rounded up it started in the Beggars District, and they sealed that off pretty well. And so it didn't get a huge amount of growth after that, as people started barricading themselves in their homes. Ghouls are not tremendous opponents, And so I spread it along a little bit, but it wasn't anything crazy. And so they started these mass burials in the graveyard, and they burned the corpses and stuff. And plenty of people died, including Gork of Gork's Butchery, so I'll probably never get my cow. Yeah, a lot of people died. Stanton is not in a great place. Okay. And so... yeah, that's going on. And at one point I'm like... oh, alright. So I started looking for the Star Master, because I want him alive. I want info from him. Because, you know, what I decided Frederick Zoller's goal is... I think, as we talked about, he thinks that this whole sign system that's going on in Senethar is just bullshit. It's basically a curse, you know. You don't really get to choose it, you just have to live this life, and he wants none of it. And so his goal is to basically eradicate this. Wipe this system from existence so nobody has to go through this. You know, he may not live through the ordeal, but he wants the security of knowing that future generations don't have to go through this. And so Ziggy was telling me that basically, I thought the parents picked. The parents don't really pick. There's these people called Star Masters, and they basically interpret the constellations for anybody's birth. And so a child is born, they take the child to the Star Master. Star Master looks at the constellations, and then they say what the child is, and that's what it is. Okay, so Ziggy also is like, well, and I was like, that's even more bullshit. That's completely arbitrary then. That's just how it is. And then he's like, well, sometimes, you know, the Star Masters can be persuaded to pick a particular sign. And I'm like, oh my god, this is the most corrupt thing I've ever heard of. So I imagine that's exactly what the Zoller family did, and they were like, no, our kid is not going to be, our kid is not going to be lawful good. He's going to be this. And so I figure, like, Frederick Zoller was meant to be lawful good or something like that. He was meant to be a really good person, but his parents just paid the dude to be like, oh yeah, he's chaotic neutral. He is. So Fred does not care for this. So his idea is if he kills every single Star Master, or, you know, I guess that's like an end goal. But he wants to get more information. He wants to talk to every Star Master and then probably kill them. So he wants to get to this Star Master. So he goes there, and the archives are locked. So I try bashing the door in. It doesn't work. Fred doesn't really do that. And so like a patrol sees me trying to break in. And I'm like, oh god, I'm just looking for someplace safe. I'm so scared. And they're like, oh, follow us. And I'm like, okay. Pretty simple. So they take me to the Rolling Barrel, where a lot of people are barricaded in there. Like, it's a very fortified area. And Gyro is upstairs, like, sniping people out of the second story window. They're sniping ghouls. And so I'm like, oh, thank you. And so I go into this heavily fortified area, and they're just like, oh, God. Okay. So this section was me basically trying to... sometimes I will forfeit intelligent choices in lieu of fun choices. Okay? So what follows is not an intelligent choice. I would have admitted that when I started doing it. But I think it was funner, sort of. The intelligent choice would have just been to sit there and wait it out, I guess. The fun choice would be to go invisible, snuff out all the candles, and then feast on everybody in there. Okay? So I'd go invisible, I start snuffing out candles, but then people start screaming. Okay? Now, Gyro comes downstairs. If anybody else would have come downstairs, I would have been fine. But no, we have Gyro, who, even though I'm invisible, only gets a -2 to her attack roll. Which means she basically has to roll a 5 or higher to hit me. Oh, man. So, she starts just laying arrows into me as I continue to snuff out the candles. I eventually get all the candles out, but I'm at like 8 health, and I'm like, fine. So I just turn into a bat and fly out of there. Party pooper. Like, it's just, you know, when it's your ally, it's like, alright, well, cool, whatever. Sure. But when it's somebody going up against you, it's like, that's so cheese, you know? They don't design characters for PvP in D&D. They don't. So, yeah, it's just one of those things where that's really powerful against what I've got going on. So, okay, you win this one. Admittedly, I didn't try anything offensive against her. I did not touch her. So I don't know how that would have gone if it was full just fight against fight. But she had, you know, a room full of scared patrons and civilians inside there that may have swung at me. So that's not what Fred does. So I flew out of there. Nothing really accomplished there. It's fine. Okay. All right. So they basically not really abandon half the city, but most of the half the city is gone. So they start heading east to check and make sure that's all secure. And I didn't really get many ghouls over that side, just a few that did some damage. And finally, Lord Stanton and a troop of guards come out of the castle and meet up with Commander Kill. And they discuss, you know, these events. And then the Lord Sand's like, "Where's Frederick Zah? Where's the diplomat?" Like, I don't know. Because they can't really say that the ghouls are because of me. Because they had undead problems before I showed up. You know. They had their trades guild, whatever, filled with them. So, okay. A little bit later, Commander Kill really identifies one of the ghouls and recognizes that it's a spawn of a vampire, so okay. And they're like, Frederick Zeller must be brought to justice. So at this point, I fly up to Lady Greystar's balcony, and I just chill out there. And she eventually comes into her room and sees me, and we have a bit of a conversation. Okay, and what follows here is a combination of bad luck and me severely misjudging a situation. Okay, so we begin talking, and she's like, you know, she says something like, "You certainly know how to spin chaos and misery," or something like that. And I'm like, "Yeah, what do you think?" And she's like, "You've caused me a great deal of trouble here." You know, and I'm like, "Well, aren't you in league with Magus?" And she's like, "Well, Magus and I are somewhat of rivals, I would say." I'm like, And she's like, "You know, I hoped that I could, I don't think she used the word retire, but enjoy a life here ruling over these subjects." And I'm like, just rabble. And she basically continued to approach me, and I was just like, meh. You know, they didn't really mean anything. They're just worthless scum, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know, there are still a few members down there that know your true secret and directly oppose you. And she's like, "Yes, I hope to deal with these people soon." And she like raises a hand and fires some Dragon Ball Z shit at me, which misses. She's like point blank to me. I'm not even like facing her. She misses. And I'm like, oh, good. So we go into combat, and she fires off another beam, which hits me. So I'm like at a fourth of my health. I was at half. And I'm like, okay. So I go into bat form, and I start flying away. So I'm a tiny creature about 8 squares away from her. She fires off another thing, hits me. Okay? So I go down, and I'm unconscious. So I hit the ground. I'm at about negative 11 health. Alright. That's what he said, negative 11 health. Okay? So I have, as a vampire, you get regeneration. It says well bloodied. So technically, I'm no longer bloodied, I'm unconscious. But that would be really dumb if it didn't work while I was unconscious. It's kind of OP, but not really. So whatever. So as long as I'm under bloodied, I have health regeneration equal to my charisma modifier, which right now is 5. So every round, I get back 5 health. So I'm like, alright, whatever. In 3 rounds, I'm just going to be back, to being able to fly away. But during those 3 rounds, I have to roll death saving throws, which is just a d20. You get a 1 through 9, you fail. You get a 10 through 20, you succeed. Okay? If you get 3 failures, you die. Alright? So, I'm like, alright, I have to roll 3 dice. As long as I get 1 success, I'm fine. Roll the first dice. It's a 9. Like, alright. Roll the second dice. It's a 9. Roll the third dice. It's a 1. And I'm just like... just a big middle finger from fate right there, Okay. And we agreed when I made the character, as he's like, that character is not going to be able to go beyond the grave. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, so... Yeah. So, very bad luck, as I said, but also me misjudging the situation, okay? So, alright, let's talk about plan, because I know that whole thing seems very random and chaotic. It was supposed to be. That was the point, was chaos. Chaotic neutral. Most people interpret chaotic neutral as just do whatever you want as long as it as long as it profits you the most. I wanted to emphasize the chaos portion more. So I really wanted to just create chaos. But, as I said, Frederick Zoller has his own goal. He's meant to be lawful good. So what's the end goal here? Well, the end goal is to take down Lady Greystar. I can't do that alone. The other 3 don't really trust me at all. Maybe I could have worked with them, but could the 4 of us defeat her and are all her guards? Maybe not. So what's the best way to defeat her? Well, for one, take out, most of her security. Destabilize the town, basically. This was the best way to do it. The final step of the plan that I basically just quickly came up with, I thought she was in league with Magus. And so I was basically going to go there and say, now would be a good time for Magus to invade when the town is at its weakest. I guess I thought that's what her goal was, to take over the town. I was wrong. She wanted to just live it up in the town. I was like, okay, how are you evil? Like, all right, you just want to live here and we'll farm a bunch and everybody will be happy. It's like, oh, am I wrong? Are you not evil? Am I the evil one? I don't know. So, yeah. So then I was like, okay, she's not in league with Magus. I need to be in league with Magus. So my plan was to fly out immediately after she started attacking me. I was going to fly out, go straight north, and find Magus and be like, hey, that town of Stanton is really freaking weak right now. and you could probably take over that, no problem, and kill this bitch. And I'll help you do it. Why? Basically, Fred saw warlocks as a potential means to an end. Like, obviously, they're mostly evil, but if they could help him get rid of this whole sign system, like, Fred's obviously a flawed character, I know, but he's flawed also in the sense that nothing else really matters. He just cared about this goal of, like, it was personal. Like, it was like a personal vendetta. Like, a psychologist would say this all goes back to his parents. Like, he hates his parents so much because they did this to him, but it's not completely their fault, really. It's this system that's in place, and so he wants to just dissolve this system, and so he needs basically power to do that. He doesn't know if killing all the Star Masters will do it. It could be take a much greater power to do that, and if anybody has great power here, it's the Warlocks. So he would not be opposed to working with the Warlocks, if that's what it took. But he's dead. So yeah, my plan going into the session was, okay, basically, send out these letters, get maybe a whole mob there, but create the ghoul army, so that creates all sorts of chaos, and then fly up and talk to Lady Greystar. And so, yeah, I basically accomplished a plan for once, until the very end, where luck mostly screwed me. It's probably for the best, though, as the rest of the group was getting very upset with me. Probably rightfully so, as if I had gone off and flown to Magus, I'd basically just be saying, you know, it's me or them. And really, you don't want your D&D games to go like that. Because I would basically just be evil at that point. So it's probably for the best that I died. Because, yeah, it would have been a dark path we all went down there. Yeah, so I guess it's okay in the long run. Fred Zoller lived a short life there. I didn't really get any great Fred Zoller moments out of this time. He has had some great moments in his career, but this wasn't anything really shining. Yeah, he's basically just a perfect example of the bluff skill being very dangerous in the wrong hands. So that's not the last time you'll ever hear of Frederick Zoller. I'm sure he'll make a reappearance somewhere down the line, but he's definitely probably my most polarizing character, as he doesn't really work well with teams, and he's a vampire. Okay, so then we're sitting there, and I'm like, well, I don't even know what I would make for a new character, you know? And I'm trying to think of, like, original characters that I could do. But that's tough to just... I didn't put any time thinking about it because I was like, Frederick Zoller dying? No. No. But I was having... And I was like, well, I can't play as Ovum because there's no real religion here. And I was like, well, maybe Katao. And then Ziggy was like, well, you could play as Ovum, but basically, like, you'd be the only person that believed in this religion as almost like a creation of your mind. Like almost like he's mentally insane. He's made up this religion of Artemis. And I heard him say that, and I was like, huh. I kind of like that. I think I have to do that. And so, I don't think I'm the only one that's guilty of this in the world of pen and paper games. It's just easier to go back to a familiar character than to come up with a new one. So we have Fred, we have Ovum now. We would have had Katow, which is another old character of mine. Artemis will not make an appearance in this campaign. I can promise you that. It just does not work. I don't want to. No, I won't do it. Yeah, it's just easier for me to go back to a familiar character, and I think a lot of people do that. New characters can be really cool. You know, at one point, all these characters were new characters. But yeah, it was like, I can really work with that. Again, I like Artemis, Fred, and Ovum because they're overboard. It's much easier for me to work with. Frog was not really overboard in any sense. And I'm sure Frog was the rest of the group's favorite so far of my characters, but he was not my favorite. So, if Ovum dies, and I'm sure he will at some point, I'll probably bring in Katow. But for now, I was like, okay, well, let's see how Ovum does in this world. Alright, so Ovum. I assume everybody is familiar at this point with Ovum, but if not, I think I did a series called Righteous Indignation. I don't know if I put that in the title. But anyways. Okay, so Ovum is a half-orc. He is an Avenger, which is basically like an offshoot of a Paladin. And Ovum is basically the only way that I would ever play a Paladin. Or somebody like that. And while we were discussing this, I brought up the topic of, I was like, how can there be Paladins in a world without religion? Because Paladins, Clerics, Avengers, there's another Rune Priest, maybe? I don't know. Basically, like divine magic, holy magic, whatever. Regular magic is part of kind of some unseen force, that just kind of permeates throughout all dimensions. And magic users, wizards, and mages can summon it forth using incantations and such like that. Okay, and there are all sorts of various explanations for how magic works and stuff like that. But that's basically the general idea. Divine magic comes from the gods, the deities that look upon certain people, people of faith, and be like, yes, you are blessed. You may control just a tiny fraction of my power for your divine uses. So how can a paladin in this world that doesn't have religion cast Lay on Hands and divinely heal somebody? And so Ziggy's like, that's a good question. And he's like, well, maybe, we'll say it's like a mystery that's going on that nobody really knows the answer to. And I'm like, well, Ovum knows the answer. It's like, yeah, Ovum knows. Okay. So, yeah, Ovum is... Originally, he was basically a half-orc that was raised by the original Zexar, and he was raised to be a devout servant of Artemis. And so he basically has this huge-ass sword, and he kicks anybody's ass that don't like Artemis. He also kicks heathens' asses, demons' asses, orcs' asses, goblins' asses. He kicks a lot of ass. That's what I'm talking about. And he lived a pretty short-lived life in the original campaign. That was the bag just completely screwing that campaign over. I was kind of upset. He also made a short appearance in Ziggy's Numenera campaign. And now he appears here. Okay, so this time, this is probably going to expand from what the story is right now. But the story is he's, like, delusional, I guess. And he believes in this Artemis figure. Nobody else has ever heard of it. But he goes around saying, go with Artemis and stuff like that. People are like, oh, okay. You don't really question this big-ass half-orc. And so he goes around, and obviously he's going to confront evil wherever it is. He despises the warlocks. He'll kill them on sight, of course. But he is also after the Star Masters, because he sees them as heathens. How can you preach this birth sign nonsense when it clearly contradicts the glory of Artemis? For that reason, Ovum is signless. And I think I talked about this at the start, but there's, we have these birth signs that you pick, and they each give benefits and stuff like that. If you forsake your birth sign, you are what's known as signless. This is very bad. You don't want your character to be signless. Every time you roll a natural 1 on a d20, you have to roll 1d6. And that corresponds to each one of the stats. So strength, con, dex, int, whiz, charisma. You lose 1 point permanently from whatever number you roll. Very bad. And you also are seen as like pariahs, and you're like slowly fading out of existence, like Back to the Future and shit. And nobody likes you, and you're terrible. That's signless. And so Ovum, he hears all this, and he's just like, Artemis don't need that shit. And I was like, do I still have to pick a birth sign? He's like, yeah. I was like, he's like, huh? I'm like, He's like, well, I guess you could be signless. And I'm like, huh. I'm like, I feel like that's exactly what Ovum would be. Like, he would not follow this nonsense. And Ziggy's like, wow, okay. So for my bravado in choosing to be signless right out the gate, he gave me an extra ability point. Which is not a great counter set, but it's appreciated. And so we roll stats now, of course, and Ovum did not get a great stat set to begin with. I have like a 6 intelligence. And I'll be honest, I can roleplay a genius kind of okay. I could handle Artemis. I can't roleplay a dumbass. Because I can't play a dumbass. You have to be really into it. Because, like, when I go into a room and I'm like, I'm thinking about this as a player, I'm thinking about what's going on in the room, and there's some metagaming going on, and, I'm talking to the other people and maybe coming up with a plan. This is kind of a stretch because it's Ovum, I know. Usually the plan is charge in, but you get what I'm saying. But when you're playing a dumbass, it's just like, oh, I don't know. And I can't, I'm not going to bother with that. So I have a 6 intelligence. It affects some of my skills. I can't read. That's the end of it. I don't care. I'm not going to talk dumb. They were giving me shit for it. They're like, oh, blah, blah. And I was like, if you're going to keep doing that, I'll change my stats. I'll switch some numbers around. I'll give myself a 6 constitution. But no. Maybe I'm just being selective. Whatever. Where was I? So yeah, Ovum in this world, he's kind of crazy. He's signless. He kills evil things. He kills Star Masters. And he kills anybody that's beyond the grave. That is also heresy. That's like necromancy. That's not tolerated. So I go basically town to town looking for each Star Master, and I assassinate them. But also, if there's evil lurking about, I'll take care of that. I don't judge. Actually, I do judge. That's what he does. So I come to Stanton to find Stanton's Star Master. And thanks to a young man named Jax, he tells me where he is. He's staying, in the upstairs of the leaning chair, whatever. So I go up there, kick the door in. And there is Arthur Goldwright, the Star Master, and Logan Dunbar. Both are beyond the grave. Logan Dunbar has plot armor. He's still important. So I don't get to kill him. He flees. Bullshit. Like, we didn't play it out. Like, he didn't set it up so we could actually play it out. Because Ziggy knew that if that happened, there's no way either of them would have gotten out. He's just like, oh, roll a d20. I assume you're going after Arthur Goldright first, because he's the Star Master. I'm like, yeah. So I slaughter Arthur Goldright easily, but, oh, Logan got away. And it's bullshit, because I have an ability, Ovum has an ability, where he can mark somebody with, like, this mark of the Relentless Hunter. And until I mark somebody else with it, I always know exactly where this person is. Like, you mark somebody with this, they can never run far or fast enough away from you. You will find them. But I didn't get it on Logan, so he's gone. It's fine, I don't care. I was there to kill Arthur. And I ended up staying in his room with the kicked-in door. I also killed like 20 ghouls while I was there, just hanging about. Okay. So, yeah. So that craziness all goes. I think they have another conversation with Lady Greystar and stuff like that. I was making Ovum while I was doing this, so I didn't really hear much. But I think she relieved the oath magic off of Gyro, but not of Commander Kill. And they were like, you are going to go on this mission to meet with Magus. You know, without Frederick Zaw, he's dead, but you're going to go. And so, earlier in the session, they had given a letter, like a sealed letter, to Commander Kill to give to Magus. And they didn't open the letter. And I was like, if they had handed this to Fred Zoller, he would have popped it open right away. Because, you know, you can't trust Lady Greystar. Just don't do it. Even though I tried to. So, they don't know what this letter says. But Lady Greystar is a rival of Magus. They're both warlocks. Does she really think that they're going to, like, cooperate? Or something like that. I don't believe it. Would Ovum look at the letter? If he finds out that Lady Greystar is a warlock and sent them on the mission, yes, he will immediately demand to look at the letter. If he doesn't find out, then chances are he probably won't even find out about the letter. So, no. But he has made it clear that he will kill Magus on sight as soon as they find him. So, you know, whatever. But, anyways. Yeah, I kind of skipped ahead a little bit there. But, okay. So they're like, sure, you know, we'll go on this mission. And this is basically like, let's get this damn group together. You know, enough of this nonsense where we're all over the place all the time. So, just go on this mission. And then one of the guards is like, Commander Kill, should we look for mercenaries in the town to go with? Yes. And so a bulletin's posted, and they ruled, well, we decided that I couldn't really read. I can read bits and pieces. In his original campaign, Ovum was brought up by Zexar. And, of course, he was definitely educated. Here, he didn't have that great of an upbringing. It was much... Again, he's kind of... I'm not ever going to call him mentally challenged, even though others will. Because Ovum believes, and I believe, that Artemis is completely real, and he is guiding, you know... He's guiding Ovum to a greater purpose. To await Artemis's grand arrival in Senethar. But he's a half-orc, and I haven't really fleshed out his backstory. I probably won't unless people really ask. But I think he kind of raised himself, as it were. So he didn't really ever pick up too much reading, but he can recognize certain words. So he sees this bulletin, he sees evil, adventure, gold, Magus. And he's like, sign me up. And so it says, oh, he also recognizes the words council house. Why? Plot. And so he's like, where's the council house? And they're like, ah! And so he goes down there, and a guard brings Ovum to Commander Kill, and he's like, I found this guy. Like, oh, you seem strong. And Ovum's like, I hear you're going to kill Magus. Like, oh, kill? Well, that's a bit forward, but we're traveling north, yes. Like, I'm going to kill him. Like, okay, I like your style. And so they got horses, we got supplies, and we headed out. That's pretty much it. And I was like, Ovum's like, oh, Magus has sinned against Artemis. And Commander Kill's like, I've not heard of this Artemis fella. You have to tell me about him. And I'm like, oh, I will. I will tell everybody. And so, yeah, that's pretty much where the session ended as we headed out of town. Finally together as a group. Oh my gosh. So they probably wouldn't be too happy about me killing Arthur Goldwright and almost killing Logan Dunbar. But hey, within like 10 minutes of this new character being introduced, we're all together as a group heading on an adventure. Come on. That wouldn't have happened with Fred, so just be happy about it. Yeah, so far I've had the most new characters as this campaign, which is not normal for me, considering Artemis, lasted from start to finish. I'm not sure what the cause of that is, other than, I guess, bad luck. Also, both of those characters kind of suffered from a bit of stupidity, I guess. Or maybe it's just fate, or maybe I gotta just I gotta get into that groove of my character where it all just kind of flows together. It also is a bit more of a deadly campaign than we normally run, but yeah. Alright, so yeah. We have Ovum now, which is a switch, definitely. My major question here is, what does Ovum actually think about Artemis? Like, did he actually just make all this up in his head? Or was it kind of just, like, placed in there? If you get what I'm saying. Like, when people are going to ask him about Artemis, what is he going to say? Like, is he just going to say, oh, he's the Great One, the deity, our savior? Or is he actually going to talk about, like, the Nine? Is he going to talk about the Divines? Are we going to go back to that? Or is this is completely separate, and it's just, he believes in a deity known as Artemis, and he just made it up. I'm fine with either route. I just kind of want some clarification, so I'll have to get that from Ziggy. That is not a question of whether or not it's real or not, because that's a separate issue. I just want to know what he thinks. So, yeah, I was not expecting to switch Ovum, but Ziggy said that, and I was like, I can't pass that up. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Fred is, I guess, best in a town. Ovum is best on an adventure where he gets to kill a lot of things. The biggest question, and the others were asking, like Glenn and Gyro never really played with Ovum. They were like, is he more of a team player than Fred? And Ziggy and I are just both like, it depends. He can kind of go off at a moment's notice. If any of them were drunks, that wouldn't be great. If any of them were racist against orcs, that wouldn't be tremendous. If any of them were warlocks, he'd cut them down right where they stand, but, we'll see how it goes. Ovum's another fun character to just roleplay as, because, again, he's crazy. He's over the top. Those are the best. How can you not love that? I can't really see myself playing just an average character, Just a human guy that just kind of goes along with everything. I can't do it. Like, I wouldn't want to play D&D if I had to do that. That probably says a lot about how I play, and, you know, some people... I mean, I'll be the first to admit I tend to take over any session, you know. I tend to be a focal point. And that probably pisses some people off. But it's either that or bust, you know. I can't play any other way. You know. Yeah, even, like, literally my first D&D game, like, ever, I remember just being, you know, the crazy one. That's just who I am, so I'm not going to back down, you know. I guess if it eventually pisses off enough people, then that would be the end of D&D, but for now they tend to stick with it, so it's alright. So yeah, that's how it goes. This epic trek to visit Magus, I doubt it's just going to be, let's travel north for 3 days, and, oh, we encounter a goblin camp, and, yes, Magus is right this way. I imagine there's going to be some pretty major shit going on. Now, he has a goblin army. Goblins are not orcs, so... Orcs are, you know, of course, my main enemy, but goblins are like a little offshoot of orcs or something. I don't know. I never bothered to think about it too much. From Ovum's perspective. So, just kill them. They're clearly evil. So, just slaughtering goblins by the dozen. Yeah, that'll be fun. Alright, I think that's about it for this one. I think we're talking about testing out D&D 5th edition, D&D Next, Dungeons and Dragons as they want to call it now, the next edition of D&D. They released the basic rules. They released this for free, so you can go on Wizards of the Coast site and download the basic rules for the next D&D for free. And so we're going to try it out. Because I like 4th edition, it's cool, but I'm always open to new stuff. So if 5th edition is where it's at, maybe we'll think about switching down the road. But we're going to try it out maybe sometime next week with Commander Kill DMing. Just to test out the combat and stuff like that. So I'll probably do a video about that. But, alright, I'm done talking. So, my name is Mang. This has been Roll Manging for our D&D campaign, and I'll see you fine folks in 2 weeks.